spawning in the top right. Your blue Terran player representing Guadalajara, Mexico. He is SpeCial! And facing off against him, the Aegis of Korea in red. Playing for Splice, he is Stats!
All right, let's see what the Protoss versus Terran will bring us here. Of course, we already saw this map earlier, and that was crazy. I think Todd said it during his commentary. If you guys just joined in, that's not how most Protoss versus Terran games look like, okay? You don't open up with cannons, stat scouting very early. Of course, the proxies, you know, they've been dominating this matchup over the last few months for good or bad. A lot of Protoss players will say, like, you know what, I actually think I can deal with the majority of these builds. And then you've got Protosses that are on the other side of that, saying, like, it just feels like I'm always behind. But it seems that SpeCial is taking a slow and steady approach to game one here.
Yeah, I think SpeCial definitely took a look at what happened in that match with Maru. I wouldn't be surprised in a best of 5 for him to break out some play like that. But a lot of Protoss players send these very early probes to scout now too, and you're giving information with this because we've had SpeCial build that barracks somewhere, not really at the enemy's base, but just hidden to give the Protoss the impression of that. But as a Terran player, you kind of anticipate that the Protoss scouting your barracks that early in your main is going to get the fast nexus at their natural. You're not going to deal with the units being on the map that quickly. And for Stats, well, whatever his basic game plan was, he's not going to have to worry about dealing with early Reapers and not so likely dealing with early Cyclones once he sees the command center on the way.
Of course, the proxies were designed to punish the greedy Protoss players out there that would go for a 1-gate fast expand, and sometimes not even scout at all, would scout incredibly late, and only then they could react against the proxies. Now these Protoss players, like you said, Stats immediately sending out, he runs to get an SCV, he got very close to getting it, but the Reaper will save his body. I mean, Protoss players have just played it a little more safe to say, okay, we're okay with losing some resources early on, but let's just see if Terran is proxying or not. If they are, we're staying on one base. If they're not, then we can still go for a 1-gate fast expand, even if it's delayed a tiny bit.
Yeah, that probe scout back in style. Gets 2 hits with the Adept. If he was able to, I was going to say, if that Shade follows the Reaper and he doesn't go down the cliff, he could deny the scouting of the Terran player. And we do have an SCV hiding in the southeast. That factory is about to finish.
Maybe a Hellion drop here. I think that's a possibility. Of course, it could also just be Cyclone Marine in the front and a Liberator in the main base. Yeah. That is a potential as well. We'll see where SpeCial takes this build.
And he is going to proxy that starport in the southeast corner of the map. Adept's going to pick off that weak SCV. Will come up the ramp, sees the reactor, sees the factory. There's just that Marine there. You don't see the starport, but you're not 100% certain it could be built just a little bit north of where that factory is.
If it's so far away, it could also be Cloak Banshees, I feel, right? Because it doesn't really make much sense if you want to go for any sort of medevac drop to build it this far away, because you don't really save yourself a lot of time. And of course, there is a downside for Terran to build your starport that far outside of your main base.
Yeah, as we see here, SpeCial going to get bullied a little bit. He builds that one Hellion, but Hellions aren't really what you want to be building to defend against this type of poke from the Protoss player, so it's an awkward spot. The Cyclone's going to start up now. The Reaper's at the front, but not really a lot of opportunity. And there, the Adept gets the full scout. Sees a second barracks in production. No starport, and then suddenly some alarm bells should be ringing for Stats.
This is already becoming a little bit painful here, though, for SpeCial. I mean, not having a bunker, he's been losing quite a few SCVs, a couple of Marines have gone down. Knowing that there is a Hellion out on the map is very nice as well. Sure, the Reaper is still alive and trying to be as annoying as possible. Might get a work in there. Nah, good job so far by Stats, using his Stalkers in the best way possible. Now SpeCial gets the bunker, but it's safe to say that bunker was a little too late.
And as our wonderful observer showed us, that Reaper went down, actually kind of blocked the robotics facility from being built, so he didn't see that startup. There can, of course, always be the assumption from a Terran that you're going to get a little bit of defensive play with a Robo because there's a Twilight Council, but information, very important. There we have Cloak on the way, a supply block, delaying that Banshee. These are the types of things, a couple seconds here, a couple seconds there, would give the Protoss the ability to defend these attacks.
And look at Stats, he really doesn't have much to worry about right now. He's trying to go up to 3 bases already. We'll end up losing that probe, so that's a nice little pick-off for SpeCial. Of course, the Reaper does go down in the process, but it's safe to say that SpeCial needs to start dealing some economic damage. I don't know if he's going to combine it with a Marine tank move out and then Banshees, if he keeps everything together or not. But if this game goes the way, or continues the way it currently is going, 3 minutes from now on, Stats is going to have a ridiculous Protoss army of 1 million Zealots, a bunch of Stalkers, they've got upgrades, and then just a few Marines and tanks and a Banshee or 2 are simply not going to cut it. SpeCial needs to slow down Stats.
Yeah, this Banshee really needs to hit pay dirt on the assault. I mean, if we look back at Special's base, we were just taking a look. The second barracks did not see a tech lab there. Stim is not on the way. The late game follow-ups that a Terran player needs to win a long match versus Protoss are not on the way. We don't have engineering bays getting upgrades. We do have another command center on the way, but how much is that going to help if, as you said, we get this 1-1 going into 2-2 charge, blink against Marines that don't have Stim with no starport back home? How are you going to get medevacs out to deal with a defensive attack? How are you going to leave your base as a Terran player?
The Shield of Fire living up to his name. I mean, there are observers in defensive positions. He's got Stalkers in both bases as well. It really feels that Stats was expecting a Cloak Banshee. He just moved out, so that's a little bit painful. There's no shield battery here either. That means a couple of probes will go down. But Nate, if you open up with Cloak Banshees as a Terran player, you're hoping for a little more than just 3 probes.
Yeah, I think you get a little bit happy once you hit that 5+ mark, but for what he invested in not having the starport at home, I think is really the big kicker there. It's definitely painful to not have the ability to heal those Marines. Stim is on the way, double engineering bay is on the way, but he's still got this little army out. He doesn't really have an escape button here if he gets overwhelmed.
This is a key moment right here. SpeCial wants to get a lot done with this army. Now Stats' army is not massive yet, but Charge is almost done. If SpeCial gets the Nexus, I would say that's good enough because he's got a command center going up at home as well.
That's a really huge pickoff. And now the Stalkers are going to blink onto the tanks. He gets one on the south side of the Marines with that Cyclone unloading, and he gets rid of both siege tanks. Now SpeCial is going to focus fire.
Oh
the
my
Nexus.
goodness.
Really good pickoff here, delaying the economy of the Protoss. That Immortal on the south side should be able to push the rest of this away, but maybe he's going to get it. The Stalkers aren't next to it anymore. The Cyclone getting that high damage output in. It's so close. Banks into the shield battery at the last possible second with 3 hit points in a dream.
Well, a phenomenal trade, nevertheless, here for SpeCial, guys. Make no mistake, that was one of those armies where if you traded army for army, you're like, oh, okay, at least I didn't get slaughtered. If you get the Nexus, you're like, at least I got economic damage done. He got the Nexus, and he traded out a lot of units there as well. Stats was obviously a little bit surprised by that army showing up. He didn't want to lose his Nexus. He's like, oh my god, it's taking so much damage. He just goes for that crazy blink forward, but that's where Stalkers are quite vulnerable, and that's why I end up losing so many of them so quickly.
Yeah, getting that economic damage is really important in this scenario because we've got 2-2 upgrades on the way for the Protoss. SpeCial is on his way to 1-1. It's not uncommon to be behind in those upgrades as a Terran, but that's where you need to have the economic lead so that you can outproduce your opponent, overwhelm that heavily upgraded Zealot army, especially when things like Guardian Shield come into play on top of that.
And don't forget that he picked off so many Stalkers. Those Stalkers are going to have to be replaced again as well. And this is a style there, and Protoss in general doesn't have too many gases, so you don't have that much income. But even if you only use 3 assimilators, if you only build Zealots, right, eventually you're going to be floating some gas, so then you can get ready for that transition. That was an absolutely phenomenal move out for SpeCial. It paid off in a very big way. I was very nervous when he started the move out because the early game was not pretty. He was slowed down a lot, he was supply blocked for a little bit. 1 Banshee already went down, but I mean, that was a massive return of investment in the end.
Yeah, so we had the Banshee poking in the northwest side, picked off there as the observer's able to follow. Now we do have a couple of missile turrets guarding the main base of SpeCial. In a lot of these situations, you have to be really careful about the Protoss moving into your base, pulling your army forward, and then hitting you with that War Prism, getting a couple of extra Zealots inside the mineral line. You look away for 3 seconds, your SCVs get ripped to pieces. It's a lot like those Banshees. You got to be on top of the harass.
Seems like Stats has gone right, like, all right, if you leave a couple of units in your main base, let's see how much you actually have on the ground. But the extra depots going down there, the sensor tower finishing up. Sure, the upgrades will complete soon for Stats, but I think if SpeCial puts his bio units in a good position, that's a lot of Zealots, but it's not an insane amount of Zealots.
Yeah. I actually like having a couple of these buildings spattered around here as well. That supply depot has the possibility to draw the units forward. It's going to block the pathing, prevent the surround as easily from the Zealots. He has a couple of Wood Mines mixed in here too, and now he's going to kite back. We see a huge splash damage from the mines going on to those Zealots. They're going to continue to push forward with those 2-2 upgrades. SpeCial loaded up one of his medevacs on accident during the course of this fight, but even with the Guardian Shield, he's pulling the SCVs now. They're trying to overwhelm this. That War Prism is going to be so crucial. Huge wave of Zealots getting added to this, but is it going to be enough? The Marines have held strong so far. He has not been able to get on top of the bio army. Reinforcements come out of the main base of SpeCial, and he is going to overwhelm this attack.
He's going to be able to pick off a couple of these Stalkers as well. The Immortal will not get saved, and only 14 SCVs went down.
But he still has 55. He's got plenty of economy.
Fine. Yes, absolutely, totally fine. Beautiful micro there defensively by SpeCial. I love how he stimmed very quickly, picked off a couple of Zealots, let the Zealots run into the mines, and immediately ran very far away from the sentries, the Stalkers, and the Immortals. So it was just Zealots fighting all those bio units. That was a beautiful hold. Yep. Magnificent hold. SpeCial is in an excellent position here in Game 1.
Yeah, almost forgot to mention those ranged units will shoot at that supply depot you put up front as well. Not being able to get the Prism in during that attack. SpeCial really doing a great job of crossing the T's and dotting the I's in this match. Now we see him want to go for the counterattack and be careful as medevacs are very low on energy as he stims forward. That's a lot of Protoss to push in against.
Exactly, I would be sad to see SpeCial overcommit here. I don't think he has to. There's a Widowmine in the mix here as well. That's going to do a little bit of damage to all these Zealots. 9 probes went down during all of this, so I assume it was a mine drop there on the left side. So now I love the move out. SpeCial wasn't looking to fight that big Protoss army. Like you said, we're both looking at each other and we're like, I don't know if you want to take that fight. You just hold. It was a distraction maneuver. Got more economic damage done on the left side. SpeCial's playing one hell of a game so far.
I really like the adjustments that SpeCial's made here. If you were studying his matches in the round of 16, you saw the siege tank play come out in full force from him. He used a lot of those with his army. Naturally, the Zealots getting to close in on your units with charge is going to make that difficult to deal with, but I love that he's been playing with these Widow Mines. He's had a lot of the support lines to fall back onto, and he has the drop hitting at the same time as his army moving out. We see those Zealots obliterated by the Widow Mines, and those stylistic adjustments from SpeCial have been helping him so much. If his bio gets on top of those Stalkers and Sentries, they are all dead. A ton of resources lost. The drop is cleaned up, but, well, that
not
army,
a victory.
Yeah, he's doing great. As our friend at the couch was saying, he wanted to see some supply, and it is getting pretty high for our Mexican Terran player.
A Terran player being up 40, almost 50 supply over a Protoss. Now, sometimes that means the game is over. Sometimes you get like, well, there are Disruptors, there's Side Storm. No, none of that. It's just the gateway units. There's an Immortal in the mix every now and then. But SpeCial has put himself in an incredible position. His micro-nade has been fantastic against the Zealots. He always stays out of range of the Stalkers, of the Immortals, and the Sentries. But he does a really good job in softening up that Zealot ball. Then he just goes through it. And the moment the Zealots are gone, I mean, the rest of that Protoss army is no match for those Marines and Marauders.
Then we get a bird's eye view here from SpeCial. Sees trying to deal with the War Prism as the Siege Tank at that third is picked off. We have the SCVs getting pulled. At the same time, he's looking forward. He's setting up the mine drop. He's moving his army towards the south side. He wants to deny that next expansion he scouted earlier, but this is where it gets really tricky. A lot of his bio is still a bit hurt from the previous fight. There's only 2 medevacs with this army, and they don't have any energy, Roddy. If he stims, this is not going to get healed.
Yeah, SpeCial has to be a tiny bit careful because obviously now he's losing SCVs again, and he was splitting himself pretty thin, and that's okay as long as he doesn't lose the big engagement. There are not that many medevacs in the mix, like you said. It would be better for SpeCial to just stay back a little bit. He doesn't have to end the game right now. No. There is no Storm on the way. There is no double Robo Disrupt attack or Colossus on the way or anything crazy that Pros could do. It's just more of the same, and if it's just more of the same, just keep defending because you're doing great.
Yeah, it needs to siege up these Liberators now. The Planetary Fortress is on the way. Positioning his army in that pocket corner is going to be hard to get away from the Liberators. Needs to focus those down with the Stalkers, but with all of this support from SpeCial's army, he's doing a good job of blasting down a lot of this. That Planetary is about to finish up and give a huge boost in the damage to this army for SpeCial. And we can see now the Zealots are all gone. Immortals going to be picked up at the last moment by that Prism, and that means the Stalkers will die, and SpeCial will hold with a higher supply.
It's a bloodbath, Nate. It's a bloodbath. There are so many units going down on both sides. And again, 11 SCVs went down. Seems like Stats was trying to be annoying on the top side of the map as well with a couple of Zealots. Now Stats realizes, okay, this is a 4-base Terran. There's a Planetary in the mix as well. I gotta transition, whether I want to or not. Zealots are simply not gonna win me this game anymore. Will they win a battle? Sure. Will they be able to harass it a little bit? Absolutely. But he needs something else because with 4 bases, Terran's bio ball is gonna be incredibly big. There's gonna be too many mines. He needs something else. It could be Colossus, but Disruptors is perfectly fine here as well. Yeah. I would almost even say since his supply is down, army supply that is, I would probably go Disruptors here.
Yeah, got to be careful with the number of Zealots running up in front with those 2. But here the Prism wants to make another
most
poke.
Of them.
He doesn't really have any hit points on this, so as soon as those shields are gone, that Prism is going to die. Mine drop at the south side of the map. There is no reaction so far, and the probes are going to get blown up. 7 workers picked off. There's the Zealots. He's going to go back down towards the 3rd position once again. Gets a good view of the SCVs. Prism is still alive. 3 of the Zealots are saved, and that means that Stats can always poke back as the medevac gets picked off.
So 2 Disruptors are on the way. Those could be safety Disruptors. I think doing both is totally fine, but of course for Stats, it's a little bit scary because he has lost insane amount of units this game.
So close.
That Prism has been alive for a very long time, by the way. Stats did an excellent job in babysitting it.
That's the OG Prism that tried to get into the main before that first fight at the 3rd base, but feels like forever and a half ago. As another mine drop is going to move out towards the north side, and those Disruptors coming out. focusing so heavily on those upgrades, by the way. The fast double forge, he's getting all the shield upgrades too. Level 2 finishing up here, wants to have as powerful of an army as he possibly can, starting level 3 shields immediately after. But yeah, you said it, going a lot into disruptors, and that means we're going to have a few more stalkers to mix in here as well. Those Widow Mines won't be quite as useful in the actual army fights later on.
There's obviously a chance. Oh, this mine drop could potentially hurt a lot. Well, somehow I think Stats got quite lucky there with only a couple of probes going down. But yeah, the Liberator on the south side is also getting a couple of workers, and all of this does pile up. Can we take a look at the amount of workers that went down on both sides? Because I feel they both did an excellent job in harassing in this game.
43 SCVs and 36 probes have died in the making of this film so far, and we are not at the finish yet, Roddy. It's been as you put it so aptly, a bit of a bloodbath this match, and it's only game 1. Good series so far out of these two.
That Observer spots those two medevacs, and that could become a little bit painful. Stats blinks forward immediately. He gets one of them. Can he get the second one too? With the Zealots on the ground, he should be able to. That's a very nice little pickup. This buys time. Look at Stats' supply. He's maxed out. How is he maxed out? He's also attacking on the south side.
That Planetary Fortress can't beat a whole army on its own. The Liberators are going to siege up defensively by the natural expansion, but once Stats gets into this position, we have to keep in mind there's 4 Disruptors with this army. If you try to dive on top of this, you can't do the Disruptors defensively. Get a nice chunk of that army. He's going to keep pushing it back. Both Disruptors appear to be on cooldown at home for Stats as he's going for a little bit of a base trade here. We do not have any more Disruptors in production. These two have to hold the door from this army of SpeCial while Stats continues to push his way towards the main base of SpeCial.
SpeCial supply is plummeting though. This is starting to become a little bit scary. A couple of those mines will get picked off as well. One Disruptor could fire in his army, but good job there by SpeCial sniping it down. But is there enough tyranny? I mean, he's been losing almost everything at home.
Now we have the Dark Templar coming in. We talked about this, actually kind of happened weirdly enough last week. You have to be careful of the base trade, those scans, the orbital commands. The one in the main, the natural, and the third are gone. It's just that base on the top side of the map. Don't know if he repositioned those, but he does not have a whole lot to deal with these invisible units. Really need to clear out the DTs, and Stats doing a really intelligent job of just continuing to bring these in and add them to the army.
Those are expensive defensive warpins though by Stats, but Stats could recall. He could try to save that base on the south side of the map if he wants to. He is recalling.
And he's going to go right on top of that army, vets the base, and that is it. GG Stats is able to close out game number 1.
Wow, what a game. And it really felt that SpeCial did so many things right. It felt like the very start wasn't as pretty, but the first move out, it really felt that he was pushing the game and he was forcing Stats to make a couple of decisions that wasn't that comfortable with, being hyper-aggressive with Zealots, with Stalkers, with Immortals, running into concaves, and it felt that SpeCial won battle after battle, yet somehow ended up losing the war.
Just such a fist fight going between these two players. The harass was great on both sides. I thought SpeCial did a really good job of dealing with the Warp Prism, trying to get inside of the main base. It's always one of your biggest fears as a Terran, getting those Warp Ins on your production. But yeah, the end of that game, just getting so hectic, caught off a little bit on the side, the army able to pick off the planetary and then wedge itself between the natural and the third. Diving on that when there's disruptors, well, it's always a huge gamble, Kev.
It's one of those games where I look at it and I'm like, I cannot believe that Stats won that actually. It really felt that his build was going to start running out of steam. He lost a couple of fights pretty decisively even. And of course he always picked up more than a handful of SCVs. Often 10 plus SCVs went down. That's nice, but the later in the game, the less that matters. If SpeCial's still sitting on 50 workers or more, that's kind of damage that a Terran can normally take. But it yet seemed impossible at any given moment for SpeCial to grab all of his forces, run to the other side of the map and end the game. Because if he would have done that, that prism that you mentioned would have wiped in 5 Zealots and would have tore up all of his other SCVs. So fantastic game by SpeCial, but an insane game by Stats.
Interested to see if either of these players shake it up as we make our way into game 2. The compositions varying. Both of these players have shown that they have a lot of range, but let us get into it, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you're having a wonderful BlizzCon so far as we continue on our second quarterfinal. In the top left of Parasite, we have the blue Terran player. He is SpeCial! And leading the series in the southeast, our red Protoss player. Give it up for Stats!
We have loaded into Parasite, and that's a map that we haven't seen that much yet here at the WCS Global Finals, not in the round of 16, and we didn't see it in our first series of the day either. I think this is quite a nice map for Stats. If you think about the utility that Stalkers and Zealots bring to this matchup, you think about the way that SpeCial likes to play it, where he often has these tiny move-outs with 8-9 Marines, a tank and a Cyclone, where he tries to get himself in a good position. That's impossible on a map as large as Parasite. It felt hard for SpeCial to end the game on Lost and Found. How do you end the game here unless you just have the ultimate Dream Terran army?
Yeah, it's going to be tricky, and we're seeing SpeCial try to set the pace for this second map very early on. The probe comes in early, gets a couple of quick hits on these SCVs, lining things up for the potential two-shot from an Adept that gets in later. He sees no barracks, double gas. It says proxy, but SpeCial this game is trying to kind of leverage that fear that the Protoss might have. Well, okay, it could be by my third, it could be by my fourth, could be just outside my natural if you're really crazy. But for SpeCial, he's keeping it a little bit closer to the chest. He's looking for mostly just to disrupt what the Protoss wants to do build order-wise. He doesn't want him to go for the fast gateway. He can still be aggressive with this if he wants, but he's not super committed.
Well, Stats obviously scouted. He knows that SpeCial's on one base, and he's like, well, in that case, I could stay on one base as well. And there is a potential here for a proxy gateway, but it could also just be a Stargate, of course. SpeCial and Stats played against each other just a couple of months ago at a pretty big tournament called GSL vs. the World, where Game 2 looked a little similar to this one. It was on Acid Plant. SpeCial opened up in an aggressive way, yet with the idea to always expand behind it. Did he get damage done? Absolutely. Stats almost ignored it and said, you can do some damage, I'm just gonna go ahead and try to end the game, and he did. And I'm sure that's a game that SpeCial did not forget about that. So whatever his plan is, aggressively, make sure you're safe and solid at home.
Yeah, now we have the Reaper coming across. We talk about that. He has the Zealot, he has the Adept ready to try and block shots. Typically speaking, when you do the super aggressive version of this, your Reaper is looking to get a couple of kills. But because Parasite is so large of a map, and he didn't really proxy this that far forward, there's plenty of defenses ready in time. Stats is not really concerned about this. He's got everything he needs to defend. Now it comes down to what is he going to do on the back against this. We have a Cyclone on the way. He sees the Stalkers coming, and of course we have that Oracle being chrono boosted as well.
Did SpeCial actually see the natural yet of Stats? Can we confirm this? This is the first time he sees it. And I'm a little bit worried. There really isn't much at home, right? It's the first Cyclone. Okay, the Marine does spot the Stargate, but this is one of those moments where is there enough in the main base? There is a single Cyclone, but Nate, you as a Terran player knows that it takes a long time for a single Cyclone to take care of an Oracle.
I believe it takes the full duration of that lock-on, which is a very long time. So putting the SCVs on the repair says, okay, if you want to try to focus those down, you can go for it. But in the meantime, actually doesn't really take too much damage because all things said and done. And then, as I said, it takes a really long time to kill anything with one Cyclone shooting up, at least on this patch, Kev. We do have another Cyclone coming out. We've got the reactor that was built there, so a lot of production here. These units for Stats, let's be careful if these go too far up towards that ramp. That's when the weird proxy actually hugely benefits you, as you can pinch the army of the Protoss player.
With two Cyclones, I think SpeCial is going to be fine here. Stats is playing a dangerous game because he knows that SpeCial is still on one base, so you should also know that there could be something happening behind these units. And I think as a Protoss player, it's always a little bit scary when you're the one who's expanding, but your units are that far out on the map that there could be a Terran army between your units and your expand, because that's where things become quite awkward.
Yeah, and that's the last thing that you want to happen, is to get caught off guard like that. Stats now to actually find the production of SpeCial. We have those Cyclones on the right side. It's a little bit awkward. I mean, at this point, if you could bring all your Cyclones out together, the odds of all these units getting away are pretty slim. So opportunity abundant. Widowmine's going to come up to follow this. The Cyclones could try to lock on. Might be looking for the already weak Oracle. These ones should be able to get out of the range.
The stasis is very, very scary. Now, of course, Stats doesn't have to go too crazy here. The only bad thing here for our Protoss is that he's even in workers. That's not that common. Now, extra Stalkers show up, but the Cyclones and Vikings are still here. So the Oracle gets gunned down, and the other one is very low in HP as well. And suddenly, I'm kind of starting to feel this position from SpeCial, Nate.
I really like the Viking usage early on from SpeCial. In a scenario like this, where it's a bit scrappy, there's not a ton of units, those Vikings are really good at bullying away Oracles from diving on top of you. Also, Phoenix from trying to lift your units. And if you need to land those Vikings, they're actually really good versus Stalkers. And in the early game, they can soak decently, but that Stasis Ward, great trap, grabbing the army of SpeCial and being pinched in half like that. He's going to lose the Cyclone. The Vikings will have to run away. They don't have anywhere to safely make another play. One of these Cyclones actually got grabbed by the one back home. There's a Widowmine close, but not close enough to save it. SCV's not able to get there to repair in time. And Stats, a lot of units coming out here to fight. Vikings do good damage, but they don't have a lot of health.
The other Cyclone should be free anytime soon, but one more Cyclone will bite the dust here. There is at least a Widow Mine that's going to help a little bit. The Vikings and Cyclones, this is a very important battle for SpeCial. Ends up losing another Cyclone, then there's one more Stasis as well.
The Widow Mine is going to trigger it, so the rest of the army is fine. The Stalkers want to focus down the Cyclones if they can. That landed Viking adds in a decent bit of damage. And it looks like, man, this series is just, it's just non-stop fighting on both sides from start to finish. And it doesn't look like Stats wants to end anytime soon. He's just been pumping out those Stalkers back home. He's only now just running the robotics facility in the Twilight, but he's going to get his third behind it. So he says, all right, I'll get another wave of Stalkers, see what I can do, because all your production is very exposed. And after that, we'll go somewhere else. But with the Oracle dead, the high ground vision is gone. And that means that Stats has to be very careful with how he plays these ramps.
But it's very important that he also keeps track of the army of SpeCial. You don't want to have 5 or 6 Stalkers just sitting in your natural and then those Cyclones show up, because that's when it becomes very, very tricky to micro against it. He's looking for openings. SpeCial's really not going to give him an opening, but SpeCial has a lot of SCVs here just repairing this army. These are SCVs that are currently not mining. So obviously economically Stats is doing quite well, as the graph showed us before too. I mean, this is such a bizarre, unique game because there is so much movement with just simple gateway units before Blink is even close to finishing up.
And this is terrifying. All of SpeCial's production completely exposed to Stats because he wants to go for this big counterattack. We do have Immortals being chrono boosted out right now. Blink is on the way, and SpeCial is putting himself in a very awkward spot.
The pylon? I would go for the pylon probably here, right?
Okay, he's going to force the recall. This is a really important moment. If he's able to get that, the Immortals knocked out! And it's just Cyclones versus Stalkers, and maybe a probe or two here. As another pylon is about to finish, the Immortal will be out in just a little bit of time, but has he gotten enough damage out? If he focus fires it, the Cyclones take a lot from it, but they can kill it quickly too, and he's gonna get the Immortal. SCV's repairing everything that they can. The probe's been pulled off the line to try and shut this down. Only 3 Cyclones remain. More Stalkers getting warped in, and it looks like SpeCial's army will finally be routed.
I mean, Stats holds, but obviously at the cost of 8 probes. He lost the pylon, lost the Immortal that he just built, and he's just kind of in an awkward spot now. But he has created a lot of freedom for himself. That was the scary push. That was the only push that SpeCial was going to be able to make in the upcoming minutes of this game. And it's quite rare that you can talk about minutes in a game of StarCraft 2, but this is just going to take a very long time for the Mexican Terran to even think about moving out again. He didn't even start Stim yet. He has to float his buildings home. So Stats, even though he took quite a bit of damage, he has created an immense amount of freedom for himself.
Yeah, I wonder if he's going to cancel these units. No, he'll come out and try to fight against this a bit. He wants to keep that factory where it is, doesn't want to lose the units that are coming out of it. The Stalkers are going to try to trade out as best they can. Blink is 6 seconds away from finishing, so after this should be an easy escape path for Stats to get out of here.
Oh, look at that, 4 barracks at once being thrown up as well. One more Cyclone gets picked off there. Good micro, of course, with the Stalkers. Stats was already very active with the Stalkers before they had Blink, so obviously you can trust in him the moment he does have Blink. That is going to be even more annoying and much of a nuisance, but once again, it's just going to take so long for SpeCial. This is very uncommon, Nate. This doesn't even feel like a game of StarCraft right now, where you look at your main, you're like, it feels kind of like an even game, but I just can't do anything for so long, and that's because of the strategy he chose early on.
Yep. I mean, when you limit yourself like this, because he hasn't started Stim yet, the Protoss player has the robotics facility, the option is there for Stats to try and blink up into the main base. I mean, look at where he's building this next command center. Even if the Observer comes by, he doesn't even need to blink up. He could just kill that command center from the low ground.
He has a bunker, but he has
no
bio units.
Oh my god, Stim is right here too!
Oh, I mean, with all the SCVs here, forward blink, the Cyclone's gonna get picked off almost immediately. That Viking will get picked off as well. It's just Stalkers and 1 Immortal. The biggest problem is there's only 2 Marines on the side of SpeCial.
Yep, and it's just that 1 Marine in a bunker trying to hold the door for him. GG, Stats moves up 2-0.
What a hectic, chaotic game where the fighting felt like it never ended. A couple of buildings in the middle of the map, and Stalkers and Cyclones were just dancing with each other until one side got a little more tired than the other. And I mean, Stats is playing fantastic so far. He's playing aggressive, more aggressive than I expected him to be, but there is always a backup plan for him, and that's what makes him such a phenomenal Protoss player. Whenever
you play Cyclone-based openers against Protoss, you have to be thinking about that transition. It is so hard to make that switch. Reactor-produced Cyclones are very, very expensive. Getting the damage on the probes was nice, but the third base, the economy, really put Stats in a position where he could easily pump out tons of units. And because the barracks was in that hidden spot, we talk about messing with the Protoss' state of mind. You're trying to throw them off. deny information from them, he couldn't immediately just start a tech lab and get Stim. He had to fly it all the way back. He had to start 4 more barracks in his main base, and even the starport doesn't get to contribute because it has to fly home too. So it's a rough spot to be in, but that's the risk that you take as a Terran when you want to do that. You can do that proxy factory, get a second one in your main after, maybe try to move into bio a bit more quickly, but then you also still run the risk of getting attacked before Stim. There's a whole lot of things you need to take into account when you play these builds out, and Stats read it and responded perfectly.
Yeah, I do think that SpeCial looked at Parasite as one of the maps where if I don't win that, that's okay, but I think Lost and Found was one where he probably almost counted. Yeah, where he needed it and he probably counted on the win as well. But now we should be loading into a map that should be slightly more favorable for our Mexican Terran player. And let's see if he can make the impossible happen and turn this around.
All right, let's see what he's got. We are on blue shift in the northeast. We have our blue Terran player down 0-2. Needs your support. He's SpeCial! Facing off against this Korean Titan in the southwest wearing red, he is Stats!
We already saw an SCV being sent out, and that means that once again we are looking at a barracks being built outside of the main base of our Terran. But of course the follow-up I think is the real interesting part here. There are some crazy options possible, crazy one base builds as well. One of the nice things for Terran players when they try to be very aggressive on blue shift is that A, the Reaper can always hop into the main base from this side, which means you can pull units out of position, and B, there is no ramp going into the natural. But we've seen these Korean Protoss players, man, they seem to be okay with the idea, like, all right, Terran is one base, we are one base, let's play the game from there.
Yep, and of course we have that fast probe scout coming in, poking a lot of these SCVs. We've seen this before as well with some of the pylon blocks being put on the ramp potentially, always an option. It really depends on how aggressive the Protoss wants to be, in what way do they want to be aggressive. So far it's that fast Zealot, you want it to body block, get in the way of the Reaper, play with the SimCity a little bit, get that cybernetics core, and then you make your next call. What are we going to go into? Will it be the Blink Stalkers that we saw used against Maru? Is it going to be that Stargate that he went for in the last game? And the factory will be built at home. This is important to note. We've seen a lot of crazy shenanigans when it comes to proxies versus Protoss, but SpeCial has always been just a little bit more on the conservative side when it comes to these builds than a player like Maru.
Yeah, Stats once again building one of his pylons in the middle of the map. We'll keep a close eye on that. The Adept is in production. It's being chrono boosted out. Where is that Zealot? The Zealot is over here, right next to the Nexus. Gets his swipe off, actually. That's already quite nice, because that means that this Reaper can take some less risk. And SpeCial is actually not going to get a single worker here. Not even a single shot.
So SpeCial's other way of trying to have a little bit of damage early on here is he's going to go for that block on the natural of Stats. So he says, yeah, I don't get any damage done against you, but I'm still going to delay your expansion. I'll try to get something here anyway. This is a really nice scout. The Reaper on the way back spots the Stargate. He's already got the Cyclone on the way. He's building, I mean, he's got the Starport as well. So maybe we'll see him go for that fast Viking again with an early Cyclone. Should be able to defend just fine, but as we saw in the last game, it can still be tricky. Having the production in your main, though, will definitely make holding a counterattack a lot easier.
Absolutely, but once again, trying to secure the low ground is a little bit more difficult. This is one of those maps where there is no ramp, and that means that Stalkers will shine. In the beginning of the game, Terran players, basically you need a bunker or you're going to get out-microed by Stalkers. There isn't really any other option until you maybe get a tank out, but that just takes quite some time. And obviously tanks can be a little bit immobile, and if you have very few units to work with, that's often a hard call to make as well. We'll see. For now, of course, as long as SpeCial stays on top of this ramp, he's going to be fine. But Stats is not a stubborn player. He also knows when he can and cannot do damage, immediately expands on the other side of the map.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good call. He's taking advantage of the opportunity here. The opponent's not as exposed, and he's not ready to jump straight into that mineral line. He does not want to eat a shot from a mine. Losing the Oracle early on here would be really, really difficult for Stats, as that Oracle builds its value over time. You can get the tags at Revelation to keep tabs on the army. Of course, you can always run around and try to pick off stray units, making production structures, command centers, all sorts of good stuff.
It's quite interesting as well. Of course, last year SpeCial was able to defeat Stats in the group stage with a 2-1 victory. Since that moment, he has not won a map anymore against Stats. They met in an online tournament 2-0. They met in a GSL qualifier 2-0. And they met a few months ago at GSL vs. the World 3-0, now 2-0 again. Those are things players are aware of it. That starts going through your mind as well. So it's obviously very difficult to stay calm and composed here, where it feels like you're going up against the wall. I mean, the Shield of Ire for a reason. Stats is looking very strong.
Widowmine picked off on the map. Cyclones are going to come out here, try to bully those Stalkers away. You need to be cautious. You never know how many units are going to come running towards you. You don't want to fight with just those 2 Cyclones, get caught off guard by the Warp-In reinforcements and Graviton beamed. But this is tricky. SCVs are coming down to mine this base. I think, yeah, good play. Immediately pulls more towards the Cyclones. Doesn't want to get stuck the way he did last game.
That's very nice, because the Stalkers are now in a very awkward spot as well. Is Stats paying attention to these Stalkers? The answer is no, he's not.
2 Stalkers picked off by those Cyclones. A huge amount of the damage that would do so well against these Cyclones. Removed. He could stop, get rid of this, get rid of the pylon, turn around.
Viking is a very stubborn Viking.
We can't see without you. Oh, well, he's just going to poke towards the front of the ramp. The Viking is still nice to try and bully away these air units, but he's going to land it. No, the stasis trap! Oh!
Well, at least it's a force field, so the rest of the army is safe.
Guys, just wait. It's fine. They can't get... I can't move, but they can't get through me to you. It's all good.
It's a little bit dangerous now that pylon is still in the middle of the map as well. Obviously, there's one more stasis. This is something that SpeCial can technically see, but it's quite hard to see as well. He has to be very careful. That Stalker count is getting very, very high. He's trying to renew the stasis. SpeCial should go home, Nate.
And here we have that Phoenix comes, grabs one of the Cyclones, going to be able to pull back. We see all those Cyclones on
more
low.
SCVs?
Very low. Yeah, he wants all the repairs, but there's still another stasis ward. Even if you scan, you have to be able to click underneath, and it's like, well, you know what? I will take the path less traveled by.
And that's obviously quite smart as well, because the Stalkers right now, they would always be able to get a volley or 2 off, and that has a massive impact, because sure, there are SCVs, but it takes a while. Widowmine's coming in as well. SpeCial's just putting it all on the line in his BlizzCon tournament live. He needs to do serious work with his army.
Yeah, this is a bold play, but he's going to be able to, as we said, circumvent those stasis wards. He has a Marine running on the top side to trigger those.
He saw the other one too with the scan.
Yeah, you have to be really careful about the way you keep those Cyclones spread. That scan's really important. It's going to focus down that stasis ward, and we do have 2 shield batteries rejuvenating the defensive capabilities of these Protoss units, but so many Cyclones are going to get up front and start blasting away at this Protoss. We have tons of SCVs repairing. SpeCial is starting to carve through the Protoss core of defense, and now the next battery taken down. He's pushed them all the way to the natural. Widowmines are coming up towards the front. He's still got the landed Viking as well.
The problem is he's losing more and more SCVs at home. 2 Oracles and a Phoenix has showed up in the main base. Stats is going to try to fight here on the low ground. I almost feel that maybe Stats could have just gone to the high ground for a bit. He wants to fight with the pros, but the DPS is too high. That's too many Cyclones. There are Widowmines in the mix, but of course Stats could always warp in a sentry, and with a sentry, he will be safe in his main base.
This is such an awkward position to be in. Stats actually gets supply blocked now, so he has that sentry, but he needs to warp in a few pylons if he wants to bring anything in. And his units on the other side are out of energy. It's like Oracle's it's like, yeah, you gotta put another quarter in to activate the kill ray, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's very smart for SpeCial to now go home and still...
GG! SpeCial strikes back, gets himself on the board. 2-1 right now with a lead for Stats, but man, that killer instinct by him to recognize, I really think the trigger moment was you get those 2 Stalkers that are going around the ramp, and you realize, hey, we're both playing low economy here. This is a huge opportunity for me to just bring everything over, and not having the production exposed as he did on Parasite really paid off with huge dividends for SpeCial, and nice to see Dog still got some fight in him.
Absolutely, he's not giving up just yet. I think it was an awesome game, getting those 2 Stalkers so decisive, pulling more SCVs, knowing that obviously what goes for Terran in the previous game also goes for Protoss here. If you expand that late, if you make that many gateway units, if you make a Stargate, you don't have power units at home, you don't have Immortals or Disruptors or anything crazy. No, it's just Stalkers. Stalkers without Blink, and that's where Cyclones can absolutely shine if they get the fight they're looking for.
Yeah, really great play, and I gotta say I love that he's been supplementing a lot of these forces with those Vikings as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we will continue this series in a short moment. We're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're watching the World Championship Series.
Global Finals are brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Corsair, T-Mobile, Samsung SSD, and NVIDIA.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to BlizzCon as we continue here with the World Championship Series Global Finals. We got to look at that wonderful Hall of Fame for StarCraft. Legends abundant. 20 years of a legacy for this, the most competitive game you will ever play in your life, StarCraft 2. And we are currently at a 2-1 map score in favor of Stats, our Korean Protoss, against SpeCial, our Mexican Terran player. It has been a bloodbath of a series so far, Rotterdam, and I can't wait to see how it ends.
The games have been very messy and very scrappy, but above all, they've been so hard to call, right? And I think as StarCraft fans, that we obviously are of the game as well, that's all you want when you watch a game. You don't want to know who wins at minute 3 and then it gets dragged out. No, these games have been pretty back and forth and very, very competitive.
It's been absolutely electric, and as we kick off our next map here on Acid Plant, give a cheer for our blue Terran player, down 1-2. He needs your support. He's SpeCial! And on the other side, his opponent, one map win away from advancing closer to that coveted World Championship title. He is Stats!
Stats, of course, still in a good position and should still feel pretty confident with the way that he's been playing this week so far. But must be nice for SpeCial, finally snapping that loss streak. Of course, he had that big victory last year, then he lost 9 maps in a row against this man until that game we just saw on Blue Shift, and that should be a lot of momentum in your favor right now.
It's got to feel great, and we talk about how this series has been playing out. Very Terran versus Protoss-y. We see the Terran putting the barracks somewhere else on the map. The Protoss confirms it early on so that they don't take the fast expand. You want to know if it's in the Terran's base as well, because you do want to fast expand if they're going to go for a quick one themselves. But you see the double gas, which tells you there'll be a factory after a Reaper 99% of the time. So Stats, he's just going to drop that cybernetics core, and let's find out where this goes. How aggressive does SpeCial want to be?
I don't think very aggressive. Well, unless he goes for the proxy factory here. Maybe this could be some weird Marine tank even. It could also just be Marine Cyclone. We'll see where he takes it. Stats, of course, has shown us that he likes to respond to the proxy with his own proxy, going for that Stargate. But that's a little bit risky because there are moments where, as a Protoss, of course, you're going to be able to kill a couple of SCVs in the main base of the Terran. But if you don't have enough at home to fight Cyclones, you can straight up end losing the game.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about going for that Stargate follow-up that he's done so far as his response to the proxy every game. And there it is, that Stargate on the west side of the map. The Cyclones can deal with it. The fast factory, okay, it's not in his base this time, so he's not going to be able to get a fast Widow Mine to defend. And we've also seen him just kind of use the SCVs to repair a little bit to buy the time as well. So I'm very curious if SpeCial shakes this up at any point. But so far, it seems he really likes sticking to the Cyclones.
I am very curious to see how this plays out, because I feel like if the Stargate was at home, you can obviously tell Stats like, hey, you can actually just go Phoenix here too. Phoenix Stalker does pretty damn good against a one-base Terran player. Once again, SpeCial scouting, and he finds it. He finds the Stargate again on the left side. Maybe hasn't totally seen it yet, but he's going to see it soon, because that is a big red dip on our minimap. So we'll see missile turret already, Nate. So where's that eBay? He built the eBay at home this game.
He did that very quickly, and you know, I guess he's already adjusted himself. He's saying, well, Stats has been going for Stargate every game. If I'm going to build my tech on the other side of the map, the only way that I'm going to be safe is to just get a fast missile turret. And yeah, you can do some cheeky stuff. You can park an Oracle by one of the refineries, grab a few SCVs here and there, but Cyclones come back to defend. They're going to push some of these units away. That barracks is floating home. He could get a quick tech lab on it, try to expand behind this. You know, he doesn't have to commit to a one-base push like we saw, like we have seen so far. But there you go. The turret just says hi to the Oracle. Bye, Oracle.
That Oracle is obviously going to be a little bit disappointed. The Cyclones are going to start working on this Stargate on the left side of the map.
I love this call because you talked about it. The natural follow-up to defend against Cyclones really well is going to be the Immortals. There is a fast robo facility to follow this up. Widowmine gets one of the Stalkers, but being able to deny even further harassment capability, only having one Oracle, no Phoenix, is really nice. These Widowmines, On the run, though.
Yeah, but both of them still alive. These are these minor skirmishes in the beginning of the game that are very important. Even a Revelation being used, and he didn't pick off a single Widow Mine. Stats is still on one base, already lost his target. If I'm SpeCial, I'm feeling pretty good about his opening so far. And you know what's one of the best things about picking off a target as a Terran player? Is that there is no Phoenix, and Phoenixes are not just good against Cyclones, they're also very, very good against Banshees.
So he does spot this. Now, as you mentioned, of course, the Phoenix are going to be able to chase down Banshees really easily because he can't get them. That hurts, but he actually cancels the Banshee, cancels the Cloak. He's going to build a Raven, which you would also lose very quickly to a Phoenix if there was one on the map. So he should at least be able to build this, send it back. He's got the command center coming in, and it looks like that cheeky mine's going to go up front with a couple of these Cyclones to try and do some early pressure. But it's still just one base from Stats.
Yeah, do you think that Stats could potentially go for a Prism here and try to end the game?
If he does, then I really like the Raven. I mean, being able to push the Observer away is one thing, but Interference Matrix is one of the most powerful abilities that's been added to StarCraft in the last year, and using that to shut down a Prism is also huge.
That Stalker is working on the tech lab on the right side.
He started Cloak again. He's like, I promise, it's Cloak Banshees. Please.
I mean, Stats, his Nexus is late. Of course, the command center is being built in the main base, so this doesn't mean that SpeCial has an insane economic advantage, but how often are you looking at a TvP where Terran is up 4 workers and their expand is almost done, while Protoss didn't even start their expand yet?
So here's my concern, Rotterdam. You mentioned this on the last map, is that the ramp that goes to where the natural is, we do have SpeCial getting a bunker on the high ground. This is really important. My big concern becomes, like you said, Stalkers can kind of poke that front area. They don't have to risk going up a ramp. So even if you can kill the Observer, that's nice. But it looks like he's going to lose the starport too, and that's it happens, but you don't want it to happen.
The factory made it home though, right? And
yes.
Wow, look at that very fast Disruptor Bay or Robo Bay.
It could be a Disruptor Bay. That's one way to call it.
I wonder what that's for. We'll keep a close eye on it. Of course, you know, we know that he likes Colossus, but this feels too early for Colossus. He doesn't really have any units to back that up. Could be for a Speed Prism. This is one of those games where a Speed Prism wouldn't actually be that crazy. But Stim is already on the way. First Immortal starting too. Now, of course, the fact that he was able to save his factory means that he's able to build a tank. And that tank is going to allow SpeCial to eventually secure this area where the Stalkers currently are at. And then it's still really not bad for our Terran.
Shout out to the awareness, by the way, on the part of Stats. He knows he wants to have the Observer able to see the ramp. He knows there's a Raven, but he's got the Observer in that, you know, deployed mode where it can see more around itself.
The NTF2 mode.
Yeah, but it's also just outside the range of the Cyclone, so they can't lock onto it. The Marines aren't going to go down the ramp, and the Raven, you're not going to try to drop an auto turret to snipe that Observer. So he sends the Raven across the map. He's like, you know what? I'll try to get a few probes. It's better than nothing, and it is going to be the Disruptor Bay, as it seems. That siege tank, ooh, losing that would be catastrophic. The Stalkers go for it. He gets it. Picks off the tank for just a Stalker, and that is going to really limit the ability to move down here. So here comes the auto turret harass. We have 1-2 probes killed.
But a lot of lost mining time as well, and that really hurts for a Protoss that doesn't have a great economy to begin with. So I think this Raven harass is paying off, but you're right. What a snipe there by Stats.
That tank was so important, and that Observer could only just see that bit of a lip by his base too. If he puts it by the depots, he can't see that.
That's unreal. I mean, this Raven is doing work, though. That's a lot of lost mining time. So even though Stats is doing a great job in slowing SpeCial down, SpeCial's also, you know, returning the favor to some degree and slowing down Stats a little bit. Is SpeCial aware yet of the Robotics Bay and of the Disruptors? Has he seen that? Has he caught a glimpse of it? Yes, he did. At least the Robo Bay.
That's really important. The Raven was able to get a scout, and also he was already building siege tanks to try and deal with the Stalker pressure. Yeah. So it just kind of works out for him. He says, hey, well, I could just continue to keep building siege tanks. We've seen that is how SpeCial likes to respond to this style, and that Observer is going to try to get away, but with the Raven, nope. Oh, nope, he got it. Nice.
Yeah, there are multiple ways that Terran players like to play against Disruptors, right? And above all, a lot of Terran players really dislike going up against the unit in the first place, but then I feel like there's often 2 options. Either you create utter chaos all around the map and you start dropping left, right, and center, because that obviously is very annoying. Disruptors are good, but mostly when they are being protected by other units.
You also have to be careful firing those things around your own base as well.
Exactly, because then you're going to blow up 7 probes of your mineral line. You don't want that. The other approach for Terran players is like, all right, slow and steady wins the race here. I'm going to get a lot of tanks, Liberators, maybe some advanced ballistics way down the road.
Well, okay, so we got the Disruptors pushing the army back in the center of the map. That Raven, very exposed, gets picked off, but I do believe he was able to, he was moving that medevac into the main to try and get a Cyclone drop during all of this, and that one pylon was very exposed. He's going to try to go for some warp-ins to defend against this. The shield battery is there to help keep things alive, but boy, oh boy, that one pylon is sure carrying a lot of weight. Yeah, but Cyclone's trying to kill probes with the shield battery is also funny to watch.
I would love to see those Cyclones actually work on that pylon, Nate. I mean, sure, there was a shield battery that was going to be able to keep it alive a little bit longer, but I absolutely believe that SpeCial could have taken it out. And empowering that many gateways, especially if you're moving around with an army in the middle of the map, could be massive.
Yeah, I mean, one important thing to keep in mind here is that we have a very even cadence between two players when it comes to taking the bases, and it's very often that we see the Protoss get those forges early that we talk about, get the third a bit faster than the Terran. Having the third base go up at this time for SpeCial does take a little bit of the pressure off. He needs to be careful with how much he commits here.
And he's a little bit out of position as well. Now Blink is finishing up, so I do think that Stats is going to be able to keep this Nexus safe. But, you know, even though there was no massive on power, as the Oracle gets picked off on the top side of the map, that's another nice victory for SpeCial. The work count is insane. I mean, SpeCial is...
He doesn't need to attack right now. What he needs to do is defend his third base, especially because he's building it on location. It's a powerful army from Stats, but as a Terran player, you're ahead economically, and you're keeping pace in terms of expanding. You really just want to make sure you don't drop the ball and get caught off guard by a disruptor shot out on the field while you're multitasking.
Yeah, even though it maybe felt that the Cyclones could have gotten even more, I actually think they really did a reasonable amount of damage, especially after the Raven. Ooh, that Purifier Nova didn't actually go totally forward. The Cyclones again being annoying on the other side of the map. They will get this pylon and maybe a Stalker or two. That's about it, but that's still not a bad trade at all.
Two Stalkers and a pylon there. I mean, considering everything that's going on across the other side of the map, not bad. These Disruptors do get some nice shots off, though, onto the army of SpeCial. Some of the bio is still there, but this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. SpeCial has shown us a bit of his range. He's going into tanks. We're not seeing that Widowmine style that we saw to kick off map number 1. And another thing that I know Artosis was definitely hoping for in this match is the Liberators. And one of the things that SpeCial will do is also get that Liberator range at a decent speed. Liberators with range do an amazing job of pushing units back. If you can get upgrades for those where they can two-shot the Stalkers, that has huge impacts on your ability to choke out a Protoss.
Yeah, second Forge going down. War Prism speed is currently being researched. The High Templar Archives is going down as well. It seems like Stats is now in a phase where he says, like, all right, I've got these Disruptors and I'm going to use them to buy a lot of time. If there is one thing that's very, very difficult for a Terran, it's attacking into Disruptors. With just bio, you can't really do that because we just saw what happens. They just run back, they shoot forward a couple of those Purifier Novas, and you end up losing a lot of supply. So you got to do it with tanks, but that obviously takes a very long time.
Another thing I love that SpeCial has been doing in a lot of his matches, and did this in his series versus Classic as well in round of 16, is the Sensor Tower. Terran players that use these, this is a great tool because those Disruptors are not on the fast side as far as the Protoss units go. He has a little bit of time to reposition if he needs to, and then, like we were saying, the Liberators. This did have an impact on his medevac count earlier on, probably the only thing I'd be a little bit nervous about, but since he's doing this instead of mine drops, he shouldn't be throwing too many away.
Wow, he's right on the edge. I wonder if that's being revealed or not. He's playing with fire there. But this Prism is incredibly fast. Of course, the Liberators can hurt, but I don't think SpeCial has a lot in his main base. He probably... wow, actually, it's double
He's
turret.
Done a good job with
but
turrets.
I still think on the left side, the Prism is going to be fast enough to get in there.
Yeah, especially if the potential for that upgrade that he's got there. We have turret gets a few shots.
Wow,
now the
reaction
Marines.
time, don't they? That
so
reaction
fast.
time.
He's a quick boy, and now we've got Liberators sieged up on the third base. This Liberator's going over towards the natural. It's going to look like force a couple of defensive warp-ins. We'll still get a Stalker kill there, and the probes.
Oh my
goodness! Hits the fourth base at the same time, and he's going to be able to snipe it. Running away now. The Stalkers are going to try to give chase, but as long as he doesn't eat any big shots from those Disruptors in a good spot, the Warp Prism finally finds its way over towards the natural, but SpeCial reacts in record time. We do not see those SCVs getting slaughtered too badly just yet. He's just bringing the army home, stimming it a lot on the way, as we might as well point out there. But 2-2 is on the way for SpeCial. 2-2 is on the way for both players. That Warp Prism is still alive. I'm kind of astounded by that.
I mean, there's still Liberators that could maybe chase it down, put it in that corner a little bit further.
I'd like to see him use any Liberators to try and get rid of that. He starts a Viking too.
And just now, Storm is being researched. SpeCial looked very good there for that minute of the game. The way that he reacted that quickly against that War Prism with speed, and then at the same time, he was dealing way more damage with his Liberators and moving his bio units towards that fourth base. He was outplaying Stats there for a bit. It was very clear that Stats was babysitting that Prism, the way he was doing, obviously, such a fantastic job on Lost and Found earlier. He was doing it again, but he wasn't really finding the damage that SpeCial was actually finding.
Yeah, we see that. Finds the little scouting depot, drops the Zealots onto it. Good play with the Prisms so far. That's one thing Stats has been able to improve this game. We saw in the earlier macro game at least, and the recall. One Viking boy, not enough to finish that off. And, well, we've got another Prism who lived on our hands.
Where's Tom Cruise when you need him? Would have got the job done, Nate.
Would have done all the scenes in character as well. No stunt doubles. Sick plays.
Storm is close to finishing up. Another Liberator is going to show up, but this time Stalkers are in position to deal with it. That's a lot of siege tanks. Well, you got to be a little bit careful. SpeCial a little bit sloppy there. Ends up losing a couple of these bio units.
Yeah, I do like this. This is one thing that you always see a lot of Terran players slip up on is unsieging every tank at once. He's inching his way forward. He's saying, I don't want you to come poke my tanks while while they're all moving at once. And now we get a first-person look at Stats' perspective.
I want to see where that Prism is. Obviously, the Prism was very low on HP, but the Prism did make it home. And I think a War Prism is going to be very, very important here against... Although, well, there is that Prism, and we just saw him losing it against just a few Marines on the top side. Nate, that is a massive pick-off for our Mexican Terran.
It takes a lot of the wind out of the sails for him. Now here we have another weird base trade scenario where Stats is saying, I'm going to push in towards this third base, try to make my way to the natural, but we do have siege tanks to defend as that bio pushes its way into the natural.
He can't recall because he already recalled the War Prism less than a minute ago. And so he's going to have to run back all the way to this side of the map. That means he's going to end up losing this Nexus. Maybe he's going to end up losing the Immortal there. And even the Forges are a little bit vulnerable.
Great pickoffs. I mean, you deny the fourth base, you shut down the natural. His third command center was pushed off, but it's not dead. There's the SCVs repairing and leaving all the tanks at home. That's a great way of shutting down that type of big counterattack play that Stats did on map number 1.
This must feel like a very frustrating game for Stats, even though he's absolutely still in this. He's got Disruptors, he's got High Templars, he's got 3-3 upgrades finishing up soon. He's chasing down these Medevacs as well. It does feel like he can't catch a break. Every single time it feels there's a little bit of momentum on the side of our Protoss. He ends up losing something important like a War Prism or another Nexus.
Ghost Academy starting up now for SpeCial. Give himself a way to mitigate those storms that will be heading his way, but I've talked about this all game long, and really keeping the economy at pace is so important for the Terran versus Protoss. With the denial of that natural, the denial of the fourth, he's got his planetary here. Big play needs to happen for Stats. He's going to come in and try to snipe this base and get out of dodge real quick. Is he going to be able to? Looks like the Liberator sees up just in time. No, he's going to retreat.
There simply isn't that much firepower in this Protoss army. A couple of Stalkers. There are storms, though. I do think SpeCial should be very careful. He doesn't have to run into his army, but will Stats run into his army? I think SpeCial doesn't have to take these massive risks.
And here we have a big Zealot counterattack on the northwest side. 31 SCVs mining at that base. It's a lot of his potential economy. The siege tanks not particularly good against these units. Nice save with the medevac to pick those up, but he needs to get that army, bring the bio back home, keep those alive. His units on the other side of the map denies the fourth base again, but there's still a High Templar with Storm. He needs to pull back again as we see Stats is going to rebuild that fourth.
There is still an army on the right top side of the map as well with a lot of splash damage there, so he's going to go back to this tank line. Man, Stats is doing a phenomenal job with just these few Zealots. If there would have been a couple
without a Prism, by the way.
Yeah. He just ran them in, but it was only tanks, and like you said, tanks are not that great against Zealots by itself. You need that backup of a couple of those bio units.
Needs support.
Wow, look at Stats. He's like, hey, that went great, let's do it again.
Send out another wave of Zealots. We have another sensor tower coming in for SpeCial, recognizing that he is kind of getting pulled in every which way right now. Big SCV transfer going from that base. There is plenty of bio here to deal with these Zealots, and that's why that support is really nice. Having a couple of units to defend. This Observer as well has also been great at watching the left lane of this map. Acid Plant.
But I mean, Stats losing that Nexus, that really hurt. It's only halfway done, so SpeCial is outmining his opponent. Now, of course, bases will start running dry. This is Legacy of the Void. I mean, SpeCial's gonna find this massive army.
You know what? Losing the Liberator to know exactly where everything is, not the worst trade in history. So he has that idea. He says, okay, well, the army's been split up a little bit. Really, did he get ghosts out? He's got one so far.
I mean, it feels so bizarre to look at Stats and the way that he's moving his army around at this point. He wants to be very, very aggressive here. He lands a Storm that does connect with a couple of these bio units. The tanks are coming in from the north side, though.
Oh, yeah, this is really important. This is a critical moment right now for SpeCial. Big Storm on those SCVs, 4 of them get brought down, but having those tanks to defend is really crucial at the same time. The ghost count being low is probably one of the little bit more difficult areas. He only has probably just that one EMP. Another ghost is about to finish.
And I love the way that Stats is playing this. He's controlling two massive armies that both rely on splash damage, but he's doing it with such confidence that it feels solid, it feels stable. He will shut down this Liberator as well. The Stalker should be able to absorb 2 shots. Yes, it does. Nothing goes down. SpeCial wants to get another Nexus,
wow,
but this
recall.
time, yeah, Stats is ready for it.
Yep. Finally brings that left side army back to his base, but SpeCial has another command center completing. Look at this. He's going to be able to put a depot here. He's like, just want to know when you want to take this base. Good to have that information about where the Protoss is expanding because he's been all over the map. He's been pushing out in a lot of different ways. That siege tank count is really nice. Great for bullying away all that AoE, pushing back the disruptors. Well, it'll probably kill the disruptors if they get in range of those, and the High Templar as well.
I mean, Stats' army is still all over the place, and that just makes this feel like such a chaotic game. This Orbital is very exposed, so those SCVs, those SCVs will go down. But can SpeCial get some magic done with all of his tanks on the other side of the map?
Yeah, this has been the really tricky part, is when you move those tanks out, you get really stretched out, really exposed. We do have a tank helping to defend the planetary, but it's going to be focused down. Disruptor shots going in. Marines getting hit by the storms, and SpeCial's army begins to crumble. He's running everything back home. The supply heavily favoring Stats, and this is once again getting pinched. Now he has to run into disruptors and storm if he wants to defend his base.
More orbitals going down. It would be very bad if there was a Dark Shrine for our Mexican Terran, but there is no Dark Shrine. The Ghosts are going forward, but they will get feedback. They didn't really land all of the EMPs I think they were looking for. One storm should be available. Yes, it is. More storms even, and all High Templar is full on energy. I mean, Stats just needs to make sure he doesn't run into those 9 tanks, and if he avoids the tanks, Nate, I think Stats will move on to the semifinals.
SpeCial down 100 supply. The Observer sees it all, and you know, SpeCial did a great job of eliminating the economy of Stats. Stats isn't exactly rich. He's just been investing his resources very heavily and making the most of it. He doesn't have a massive bank. We didn't see a huge transition coming. It's a lot just more of what he's already got. But as good as the tanks were, ooh, nice storm. As good as those tanks are for defending, the more bases you're taking, got to spread yourself out. Those tanks become less efficient as there's fewer of them defending.
I think if there's one thing I truly love about the way that Stats has played throughout this best of 5, it's that he's so aggressive, he's so mobile with all of his units, and he's always threatening to strike, even if he has nothing to strike with, even if he's transitioning at home. If he needs to buy time, he always makes it seem like he's really strong and he's ready for a fight, even though more often than not he wasn't, but he got the time he needed, and eventually he got the units out that he was looking for.
It's a low econ game, but it's just one base of mining effectively for SpeCial now is natural, being pushed back. The Immortals are going to break their way into the main. The Storms and the Disruptors on the right side hit that bio. And SpeCial, he doesn't have any choice but to try and slowly inch tanks and eat side storms running back to defend.
I think that Stats has paid very close attention to the games that SpeCial played against Classic, and he knew that there was no need to run into all of those tanks too early. Eventually he's going to do it, and this could still be a little bit painful, but the Purifying Novas will connect, the tanks go down.
GG, Stats advances 3-1 over SpeCial in a phenomenal, bloody series.
I loved it, Nate. Just very action-packed, very back and forth, where the games were close and very hard to call. I think SpeCial played an awesome series. Stats just looked like, yeah, he was the man to advance. He looked fantastic. He has been one of the top Protoss players throughout, not just this year, but over the last few years. He's been the most successful Protoss in Legacy of the Void, and I think he showed us why.
Really incredible to see the control, the poise come out of him, going to shake the hand of SpeCial, a player they've got a bit of that history at BlizzCon, who has still had such an awesome year. But our Protoss player, really good control, great harassment, great focus on the upgrades, and excited to see how far he's going to make it this BlizzCon. Let's hear what he has to say on the main stage with Smix.
Thank you very much, guys. Congratulations, Stat. You are moving on to the round of 4, and this is your first round of 4 here at BlizzCon in 2 years. So what does it mean to you to finally do so on the most important stage of the year?
일단 축하드리고요. 이제 블리즈컨에서 4강 진출한 지 벌써 2년이나 됐는데 올해 가장 중요한 무대 위에서 다시 4강 진출할 소감 얘기해 주세요.
일단 저번 연도 때 16강에서 너무 허무하게 떨어져가지고 이번 연도 때는 진짜 16강에서만 떨어지지 말자라는 마인드로 정말 한 달 기간여 동안 정말 열심히 준비를 해가지고 오늘 같은 이런 4강이라는 결과가 나왔던 것 같아요.
Last time I
fell really sadly in the round of 16. So this time coming into this year's WCS Global Finals, I just told myself, let's just not lose in the round of 16. So I prepared really, really hard in this past month, and I think that's why I was able to do so well and carry myself to the round of 4. And now, in this series against SpeCial, I need to ask about that last game because it did look like such a fun game for us to watch, but maybe stressful for yourself. So, were you confident that you could take it to the very end?
일단 그 마지막 경기에 대해서 물어보고 싶은데 저희들은 되게 재밌게 봤었는데 어떻게 보면 좀 스트레스 받은 경기였던 것 같은데 끝까지 자신 있었나요?
아니요, 끝까지 자신 있진 않았고 저도 게임이 너무 엎치락뒤치락 이렇게 돼가지고 이거 좀 게임이 좀 불리해질 때마다 되게 걱정이 많았었고 정말 마지막까지도 긴장을 놓치지 못하는 그런 4경기였던 것 같아요.
So he says, for sure, I wasn't confident until the last second when he GG'd. It went back and forth so many times, and every time that I was at a disadvantage, I did get a bit nervous. So until that last second where he GG'd and tapped out, that's when I was able to let go of the sort of focus and nerves that I was feeling, and I'm so glad that I am able to move on to the semifinal, and you'll be facing SOS. Now, SOS is a player you played twice this year in the GSL, and you beat him both times. So does that give you some confidence headed into that round of 4?
일단 다음 상대는 김유진 선수를 만날 건데 올해 GSL에서 두 번 만났는데 두 번 다 이겼었어요. 그래서 그것 때문에 좀 자신감이 더 생기나요?
일단은 그 4강 상대가 아무래도 성주가 아니라는 것에서 한편으로는 좀 마음이 놓이기는 하지만은 그래도 김유진 선수가 유진이가 워낙에 전략적인 그런 면에서 워낙 뛰어나기 때문에 그 하루 남은 시간 동안 잘 저도 준비를 해 와야 될 것 같아요.
So he says, on the one hand, I have to be honest, I'm super, super glad that it's not Maru that I'm facing in the round of 4. But that being said, I am not going to underestimate SOS. He is fantastic, especially when it comes to choosing the strategies that he does. He's a very creative player in that regard. So in the day that I have left to prepare, I'm going to try my absolute best. So congratulations again, Stats, on making it to that round of 4. Caleres, back to you guys.
Thank you very much. The Shield of Ire advances forward into the round of 4, claiming himself already $42,000 to his name for making it there. And what an impressive display that we saw there from Stats, taking down SpeCial. And it, especially towards the end of that, Nick, it really just looked like a true battle of attrition, and Stats knew exactly what he was doing in every move.
You're right. I mean, he really knows how to navigate the game from A to Z the whole way through. And the stasis wards were so good. There were so many very important moments where tactically he just completely took over the game. It looked like it could have gone either way, but stunning parts of that army and then dissecting the rest, it was really brilliantly done.
In that last game, Stats made tanks look like the worst unit in the game. They barely ever shot, and when they did, it was like a warning shot. He was like, okay, no, I'll not fight tanks. I'll just keep going around and basically abuse the immobility of the tanks. Attack you in multiple places at once, recall when I need to. It was just such a beautiful game. And Roddy even said it on the desk, like, Stats was acting strong when he wasn't necessarily that strong at times. He's read Sun Tzu's Art of War. Act strong when you're weak, and act weak when you're strong.
There you go. And Pig, like coming back to those kind of final moments with those tanks and things like that, was that the downfall, especially in that game where you don't have the mobility factor on your side when dealing with someone like Stats?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but I don't think it was SpeCial making a strategic mistake. It was Stats multiple times in this series using movement to his advantage. The way he moved his army around on these maps. There were many times, this Lost and Found game, for instance, where we thought SpeCial had a good lead, but Stats was so good at counterattacking with Zealots, so good at rotating his army around. He was constantly avoiding frontal engagements when they were bad, pulling SpeCial home. It was just a masterclass of Protoss movement, buying time when he needed to, engaging when he wanted to, and this game especially. He lured SpeCial into so many stasis traps, and he made the Cyclones look silly. They were running in circles for like 5 minutes. All SpeCial wanted to do was take the fight, and Stats wouldn't give him the opportunity.
That's
awesome
right.
play from Stats, so impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. A bit of a masterclass, as you say. And Todd, looking your way now, looking at the proxies that kind of came in throughout this series as a whole, it was a very kind of fiery start to a lot of these games with those proxies. And some paid off, some didn't in the end.
Yeah, I feel like Protoss really have started to understand how to deal with those proxies, with the early scouts, with just kind of getting ready in general for it. If you play standard, you know, if you're just gonna choose to sit back and do nothing, get a quick nexus. That's what those proxies are designed to counter. But once you start going on getting more units early on, seeing what's coming and reacting to it, it's much harder for Terran to make this work. And even the army movement, like, I mean, Pig just mentioned it, same thing with the Cyclones. The movement of stats where every time he kited, like it didn't look like my games. Like my games is like Cyclones come, they shoot everything, they kill it, and then that's the end of the game. But Stats was like, no, I can kite every single time, I can shoot with all my Stalkers and pull back. That's what he did, and just fantastic series from him.
I think Rotterdam made a good point, Nick, when he said that Stats had very clearly taken a bit of a step back, looked at what Classic had brought against SpeCial, and kind of almost dissected that in essence as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely a guy who knows how to prepare, and he completely altered his play style for that. And again, we're seeing why Stats is a player that wants the game to go on for a long time, because eventually he has all the upgrades, all the tools that he needs to get a closer. And even though SpeCial looked so strong in a lot of those games, eventually when it got stretched out that far, Stats was exactly where he wanted to be.